for someone to say, oh, love addiction doesn't kill is bullshit.
Yeah.
You look at the statistics of women being murdered by their spouses. A lot of that is because possibly they've been left and they want revenge. That's still a form of love addiction. Certain celebrities that have ended their life, if you really kind of delve into their history of what led them to that, sometimes it's other addictions, could be alcohol, drug abuse. But what started that process? So my rock bottom mainly stems from validation from ex-partners. So for my last ex-partner, the breakup was very emotional, to the point where I had to seek therapy, but in-depth therapy, to prevent me from harming myself. A lot of it is about loneliness, and people tend to stay in toxic relationships because the unknown is more scary than what they do. They're better the devil you know, all that kind of stuff. So once you realize, actually, I'm better out of this relationship, I am better by myself, and if I do feel lonely, it does pass. For me, I'm excited about finding or being with another person.
Yeah.
I've been single for almost 5 years now. It happens when it happens. Awesome. In the old me, going into recovery, it would happen immediately, and then there'll be another mistake, and then something else would happen and stuff, and so forth. I'm not doing that anymore.
Welcome to School of Rock Bottom with Oliver Mason. I'm an actor, a voiceover artist, and a recovery coach who's been in recovery many years, and I know firsthand that rock bottom can be the greatest teacher and the springboard for a beautiful life. And as you know, I interview fellow creatives and all inspiring people that have hit rock bottom, survived, and thrived. This is a podcast of hope and how to get into the light, out of the darkness, and into the hope and the joy and the recovery. And that's why I'm so excited today, because I've got the delightful Darren in the studio. How are you, Darren?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me along.
It's really good to see you, and thank you for coming down today. I really appreciate it. A very quick bio. If you don't know who Darren is, well, shame on you. There's going to be a lot more in the show notes, okay, but I'm going to keep it brief. So Darren is a writer, producer, actor, and director, and Darren is also co-host on the Theatre Audience podcast. Link and full bio in the show notes. As I say, dive in there now, and there'll be links to lots more on Darren and the podcast. Darren, I've obviously asked you on today, not only because you're an amazing creative, but you've had a rock bottom and a recovery journey of yourself that you generously said that you'd help our listeners and viewers with today. If we could start there with your rock bottom, and then to use a filmmaking term, we're just going to pan out from that point, if that's okay.
Okay, rock bottom. So the fellowship I'm in is SLAA, which is Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. And that's a broad umbrella of many different kind of elements. For me, for instance, I'm what they would call a love avoidant fantasy addict. Okay, so under the umbrella of sex and love addiction. So my rock bottom mainly stems from validation from ex-partners. So for my last ex-partner, the breakup was very emotional, to the point where I had suicidal thoughts, to the point where I had to seek therapy, but in-depth therapy, to prevent me from harming myself. So that was my kind of initial rock bottom for the current phase of my life. I've had a few of these in my past, but this is the one that brought me into a fellowship and to seek, if you like, solace in the 12-step program. Yeah. So that's where I am now.
Right. Wow. And, we see with drug and alcohol addiction, people talk about they've been in recovery for a certain amount of time. How long ago was that journey for you?
Oh, wow. So I quit alcohol, which would be about 5 years in May. May the 6th, actually, was my last drink. Oh, and that just started off as a detox, really. I did a month cleanse, emotional cleanse, again, following a breakup. And I felt good about myself, started to feel good about myself. And then I continued that journey. And then almost a year later, I guess in some respects, with the not using alcohol as a means to acting out or especially changing my behavior, I started to look inwards and started to work out why I was feeling about a certain way about certain people and about myself. And I crashed, and it all went back to my ex-partner. And from that, a friend of mine suggested that I look at SLAA. And so I looked into it. I thought, oh no, that's not me. I'm not a sex and love addict. I don't have addiction to sex. And, I understand I'm a grown up. I know what love is and all these things. And I remember one Sunday morning, this was the beginning of lockdown. So this is in 2020. So coming up to 4 years. I woke up and I was an emotional mess. I was crying. I couldn't work out why. I felt needy, all these things. And I literally went to the SLAA website and I found an online meeting and I went to that meeting and it changed everything for me from that one meeting. Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like giving up alcohol kind of gave you the space to kind of, like you say, go more inward. You just used the phrase, it stopped me acting out. And I just wondered, for someone that doesn't know what that term means, what does that mean to you, sort of acting out?
I mean, for me, it could be obviously very different to your acting out behaviors, but it's behaviors that stem from my point of view, an emotional response to something. So an acting out behavior might be calling up an ex-partner. It might be kind of looking at old messages. There was one of the things I remember actually when I was doing the steps in SLAA was literally going through my old WhatsApp history and finding, I wouldn't say hundreds, but certainly dozens and dozens of messages with no names. It was just the phone numbers where I have deleted this person, but I've kept the messages.
Right.
And some of the behaviors in the messages, from my point of view, were incredibly needy. They were like, so when are we meeting? Oh, so you're ignoring me now. So all this kind of stuff. I'm thinking, whoa, what is this?
Right.
So part of my process of doing step 4 was wiping all that out. And then that there's almost that kind of a sense of something clearing. So my acting out behaviors were to do with either past actual romances or people that I fantasized about.
Right.
But never met.
Right.
I may have met them on an app or something, and we've had a little bit of communication. And I've kind of in my head created this kind of emotional, romantic connection with them.
Right.
And it wasn't real. Yeah. None of it was real. So that was my kind of acting out behavior.
Got it.
And again, like I said, because when I stopped drinking, alcohol for some, I can only speak from my own point of view, gives you that sense of confidence where you can do something that you feel you couldn't normally do. It's complete bullshit. We all know that. People that stop drinking realize actually you don't need any of this stuff. I still go out to clubs, mainly daytime clubbing now, but I love to dance. I love to do stuff. But it took me a while to get there, a while to be in a bar and not so much not drink, because I'm okay with, a soft drink, a sparkling water or a non-alcoholic beer or something. But staying out later. So I'd give myself certain goals. If I go out with a mate, okay, I have to stay out to at least 9 o'clock. And if I get beyond that, great, but I have to try and be out until 9 o'clock. Right. And then now I don't care. I go, oh no, I leave when the evening's finished or bidding time, whatever it is, but it's not, I don't feel that neediness to be at home and in my safe zone.
Right.
So that's gone.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it won't come back, but a lot of that, again, started from that whole process of weaning myself from that whole connection to a substance that I believed would make me feel safe.
Right.
And the same as SLAA.
Yeah.
At the beginning of that, the whole acting out thing is I felt safe because I was with someone, even if I didn't like them, that didn't comprehend.
Oh, you mean being with someone in a relationship?
Not, yeah. I mean, but a relationship, excuse me, could be 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
It could be a quick liaison, as it were. It could be let's meet someone for a drink and that companionship. I'm okay I live by myself. I'm very content with being by myself. I am okay feeling the loneliness because it passes.
Yeah.
And it really does pass.
Yeah.
You have to believe that it does. And there's times when you feel, especially, I mean, in SLAA, a lot of it is about loneliness, and people tend to stay in toxic relationships because the unknown is more scary than what they do. They're better the devil you know, all that kind of stuff. So once you realize, actually, I'm better out of this relationship, I am better by myself. And if I do feel lonely, it does pass.
It's really interesting because when you, sorry to butt in there, but it's really interesting when you said the word loneliness. I could really sense that was such an emotive word in your eyes, when you said it. And it's something that I know on a I know on a sort of emotional level myself that loneliness is not a pleasant emotion, but I think that word to me doesn't mean a huge amount. But I can see to you, it really does. I mean, to the point where you said it passes, which is something that I use in my own recovery, but I wouldn't necessarily be worried about loneliness passing. I wondered if I could just dig into that a little bit more. What is it about loneliness that is so painful, triggering, or was, maybe I should say?
In some respects, right, like, okay, now I'm not triggered by it. If I feel lonely, this whole thing I have called HALT. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Oh yeah,
I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Yeah,
if you're any of those things, then to be fair, you're going to be okay because they're all things you can sort out yourself. And loneliness kills. It really does kill.
Yeah.
People kill themselves over being lonely, the feeling of being lonely. And I had those thoughts whilst being lonely. Now I know that actually those thoughts will pass and that loneliness does subside.
Yeah.
I know people that are in relationships and they feel lonely. There's a whole thing. I mean, even like you see these quotes from many celebrities that say, that sometimes they feel lonely in a job or in relationships. It's not about being by myself.
Yeah, and in a crowd as well. I can feel lonely in a crowd of people.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think for me at the beginning, I've never really been by myself. From living with my parents to moving out, I've always had flatmates. I've always met people. I've always been okay with meeting people.
Yeah.
I've never had a dry spell.
Yeah.
So I never needed to be by myself, because if I felt lonely, then I could find someone, because I thought that's what I needed.
Right.
When actual fact and where I am now, I know it's complete bullshit. I don't need that. And I'm better off being alone feeling lonely than being with someone or finding someone for that moment, that fix. Same with the drug addict. The reason they take that fix is because there's something missing and they want that high and they plummet and they need it again. Sex addiction is the same thing.
Yeah.
Like validation. For me, it's all about validation, being validated that the person is into me. It's not about me being into them.
Yeah.
It's all about how I feel they perceive. And at the end of the day, as we know, I am no one's business and they're none of mine.
Yeah.
And ultimately, who gives a flying fuck, excuse my language, what people think.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. When I go to my grave, I'm not going to be lying there thinking, oh no, God, remember that time when so-and-so thought this of me? No, of course I'm not. I expressed it to my niece. She's 19 and venturing into actual womanhood now, leaving her teens and she cares too much about what people think about her. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
But I've been there. I was there with myself at that age. You're all very impressionable. And I have to say, at the age I am now, I'm so pleased that I had my childhood, my teens, without iPhones and social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, because no one was recording anything that I did wrong. No, I'm not getting validation from people. I have no idea. Validation for me came from people that I knew, often didn't care about, but knew me. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to go into a club. I remember when I was young 20s, in my early 20s, going clubbing, and it was really nice being recognised by the door person and getting escorted in and stuff like that. I'd go into Soho, into knowing bars. There's an old club called Shadow Lounge. It's way gone now, but knowing the people there, where the queues go around the block, you just straight to the front. That rope opens and in you go.
Yeah.
I'm not anyone special, but I was obviously bringing something to the club, and there was that validation thing there. The point where if I had been turned away, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, this is unusual for me. This is not right.
It's unbelievable, isn't it, how all these threads just link directly back to my experience around, alcohol, but also working in the drug services about, so many people are triggered by loneliness and they, as a trigger to relapse, using substances as a way to sort of fix or self-soothe. It sounds like you're sort of using people or the fantasy of people, but it's using something external to kind of self-soothe in some way. That seems like a parallel as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, as I said, I'm a fantasy addict in some respects. I mean, I think that stems really from childhood. I had a great childhood. I mean, I had a wonderful relationship with my family and parents and stuff, nothing like that. But at school, I mean, I was a cocky little shit, and some of the things that probably happened to me was my own doing. You know, I take responsibility for it. And again, doing step 4, probably the same as you do in AA, you know, it's where are you in the resentments? You know, why are you holding on to these resentments? Where do you hold yourself in and these things that happen to you? And going through that, which took me a year actually to work out step 4 with my sponsor. And
that's a really difficult place to be working.
A lot of people give up there.
They do.
Yeah, you know, and probably in your fellowship as well, but they give up because it's so deep, and you have to do it thoroughly. If you do it on the kind of like, I don't know, on the perimeter, is that even? Then it's on the surface, peripheral, that kind of thing. Yeah. Then what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, it's then the next step becomes like almost not as strong. Then thereafter. You have to get in and do it thoroughly. And, you know, some people, they've done it in months. Some people have done it in a couple of years. I didn't know. I think my sponsor did it in 2 years, I think he said.
Wow.
Because it was so hard for him. So like emotionally that he would put himself away and then go back into it.
It's interesting how the different fellowships sort of have different timelines. I think probably in CA, you probably do it in about a day or a week because they do it so fast. And then others are longer. But I mean, there's a thing in AA, I know if someone has a relapse, they often say, I bet you're on step 4. Or if it was after step 4, people say, what did you miss out? What secret did you keep? You know?
I mean, they say if you work it, you know, you're worth it, so work it. And if you work it, then you're going to benefit from it. And, you know, sadly, I had a friend of mine that ended his own life a couple of years ago, and that's because he wasn't working the steps. And, you know, what's really frustrating about that is he had a network of people around him that he could have reached out to, and he chose not to. Right. So this ain't a singular case. This happens across the board, and you know, I don't know for a fact, but from my experience of being in the fellowship, there are people that are in the public eye. Yeah. No, I can only respond to those that probably could benefit from being in SLAA. I mean, as many people do. There's people that actually, I think about 80% of the fellows that I know are in other fellowships.
Right.
And the reason they're in other fellowships is because they think they've solved the problem, i.e. giving up drink, drugs, what it might be. Something's still missing.
Right.
And I think it's similar to me. I don't think I'm an alcoholic. I don't have that urge to have a drink at all. Nearly 5 years. I do have a sober date because it was my last day of having a drink is May 6th. And I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
But it's for me, it was more that by giving up a substance that I think was altering my behavior, it enabled me to look into other parts of me.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is, it's same thing for other people. So they give up their drugs and think, okay, there's still something not quite right.
Yeah.
Why am I behaving this way? Why do I feel like this? Okay, I need to look into it with, I don't know, ACA, for instance, or it's SLAA, or even SA, any of the S's and stuff. So yeah, I think, I mean, ultimately, I guess right now what I'm doing is step 12. I'm spreading the message.
Yeah.
Okay. I am other people that may be suffering from sex and love addiction. In a much broader sense. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it. I mean, pornography addiction, you know, masturbation, all these things are the sexual side. And then you've got the other side, the emotional side, you know, the love addiction, avoidance.
It's so sorry to interrupt you. I mean, it's such a big umbrella, isn't it? And I think someone listening to this who maybe doesn't understand it might be slightly overwhelmed with all the different little things. I just wondered if we could go back one step to go back to where we were. Something you said about 10 minutes ago. With your own journey, someone suggested a meeting and you said you went to SLAA and you suddenly sort of went, the penny dropped, this is it. I'm just thinking, if there's someone listening to this who's thinking, well, hang on, maybe I've got love addiction, because it's something that I don't think spoken about hardly at all. I mean, it's, you know, I've struggled to get people on the podcast to talk about it. Just because I don't know many people that are open about it, and that stigma needs to be broken down. What elements for you kind of in that meeting made the penny drop for you that, oh, this is a love addiction? How did you join those dots from the point of view of someone listening to this who may be trying to, you know, join those dots themselves?
I mean, okay, look, I got introduced to SLAA by a friend who is in the fellowship and suggested that it might benefit me. And I was, what? I'm not a sex addict. Like, what do you mean? Or I'm not a love addict. It's like, yeah. It's an interesting one because the fellowship is the St. Augustine Fellowship, which is its kind of name. but it is sex and love addiction, and it's almost one of those things that the title puts people off, but you got to go beyond that, you know, and own it. At the end of the day, own it. You know, like people, like I said, I'm a love avoidant fantasy addict. When I go to a meeting, like you would at an AA, I go, you know, hi, I'm Darren, I'm a sex and love addict. Everything else doesn't matter. You know, I talk about the things that are going on with me when I share. You know, people mention that they're anorexics, and you're like, but in SLAA, it's very confusing because they're talking about their emotional side or their sexual side, and being anorexia, i.e. avoidance,
right,
which is another debate altogether, which I'm not going to go into right now because it's still very sensitive for some people. You know, I call myself an avoidant. I wouldn't say I'm an anorexic,
right,
because if I said that word, people assume that I've got an eating disorder because that's where it associates itself from.
Yeah.
But that's up to them. From my point of view, the whole going into SLAA, that first meeting, I saw fellows and I resonated with what they say. I had identification with some of the things that they said. I was like, I feel that way. Oh my God. And it drove me to want to go to another meeting. And the first few months, I mean, we were in the beginning of lockdown, so it's easier because everything's on Zoom. I was going to meetings every day.
Yeah.
Every single day I was going to a meeting, some days twice a day. And bear in mind that online, you can go to the US meetings, you can go to the Asian meeting, you know, anywhere that's English speaking. And they're happening all the time. Not as much as AA. They're not as it's not as big as an organization as AA. And yeah, so it took me, I reckon, about 6 weeks. I mean, to be fair, on my second meeting, I started to understand a little bit more about it, but it took me probably 6 weeks of going to meetings pretty much every day to really kind of get, you know, to grips with what because it can be confusing. And some people, what's the kindest way of saying this? Have a lot going on. Yeah. And you might think, okay, that's not me. But ultimately, there's other things that are happening. You go, okay, I resonate with that. Yeah. Personally, I don't have a porn addiction. I don't overly masturbate, and none of that kind of stuff. And
those things wouldn't be a trigger for you to go back into.
No.
They're sort of very compartmentalized in that sense as separate behaviors to anything else.
Absolutely. And you know, bottom line behavior for an AA is you don't drink.
Yeah.
You know, bottom line behavior for someone in SLAA, it's completely like, you know, your bottom line behavior will be different to mine. So you can't. It's not a singular thing. It's I can't think of the word now, but
there's not a hard and fast rule. You know, it's not just because obviously you can't just.
There's no absolute that behavior.
You can't just abstain from love, and you can't abstain from relationships. You've got to.
No, but you abstain to the things that are harmful to you, whether emotionally, you know, spiritually, physically, mentally. You know, if my bottom line behaviors predominantly were around ex-partners and going on apps and you know, certain behaviors going past someone's house.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, when you write all this stuff out for me, from my own point of view, you realize, oh my God, I was doing that. Like I was actually purposely driving past their house.
Right.
Just in case, you know, they might be happen, you know, looking out the window.
Right.
Like I didn't even think about it until you sort of wrote it out.
And it's really interesting as well because you're talking about all these behaviours very succinctly, and thank you for doing that because I think it will help people really sort of understand, particularly people that are maybe trying to work out their own stuff as well. But also the emotional aftershock afterwards is huge as well because, you know, you generously shared at the beginning that you felt suicidal, and then you shared that you lost a friend in the fellowship. It just shows you the pain that it causes, because there will be maybe a skeptic listening to this. You know, another reason why this podcast exists, to break down the stigma, where someone might think, well, love addiction can't push you to the edge like drug addiction. And obviously I know that's complete crap. What would you say to someone? I mean, emotionally, where does it take you? Where did it, you know, take your friend, for example, without sort of obviously naming who he is and getting in specifics?
I can only go from my own experience, and for someone to say, oh, you know, love addiction doesn't kill is bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the statistics of women being murdered by their spouses. A lot of that is because possibly they've been left and they want revenge. And, you know, that's still a form of love addiction. You know, certain celebrities that have ended their life, you know, if you really kind of delve into their history of what led them to that, sometimes it's other addictions, could be alcohol, drug abuse. But what started that process? You know, I'm not going to go into names of celebrities, but certain celebrities that have ended their life through, drug overdose. Well, did that start initially as a reaction to childhood trauma that led them into being a sex and love addict, that they didn't want to kind of deal with that side because it's too emotional. They throw themselves into drink and drugs. I think ultimately what happens at SLAA, you go on the website, which is in the UK is SLAA UK.org, and they do something. You can start with the 40 questions of SLAA, and you answer the questions. And I think for me, my God, I think it was over 30 were a yes.
Right.
There's no definitive. I mean, you can have 5. It doesn't really matter. But ultimately, it's about recognizing, the similarities. It's all about the similarities, not the differences and stuff, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, and just go to a meeting. See if it's for you. There's online. You don't have to give your real name.
Yeah.
Like most of them, if you're online, are camera on, because obviously they're all autonomy kind of anonymity, of it, so people can see each other. Same as in meetings in person. Obviously, you have to be seen, and just listen.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk.
Yeah.
Newcomers don't have to speak. They can say their name.
Yeah.
So everyone can welcome them. Same as AA.
Are you allowed to have your camera off as well?
Some meetings camera off. Most are camera on.
Yeah.
I did some meetings in New York, and a lot of them are camera off.
Yeah.
But every meeting is autonomous. They have their own rules by group conscious.
Yeah.
So it just depends really. Yeah. But also own it. Like for me, at my very first meeting, I gave a false name. And I thought that's what you did. I thought the whole point of being anonymous was you were anonymous, This was on show, but ultimately anything else, And I, at the end of the meeting, because everyone was so honest about what they were saying, I felt so bad. So I apologized. I said, look, sorry guys, I just let you know that I used my middle name and Darren is my actual given name. Wow. And they were like, okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one big reason why I absolutely, even though I'm not aware of any level of sex addiction in my own life that I'm aware of anyway, is the effects that it has on the brain. And I'm going to have to look down to make sure, I get this right. But, what goes on in the brain when you fall in love and when you have sex absolutely mimics Class A drugs, to be honest. You get a massive rush of dopamine, you get oxytocin, which, makes you feel content, calm and secure. Serotonin actually goes down, so desire increases. You get vasopressin. I had to make sure I say that right, because that could have easily turned into like a coffee brand or something, Espresso or something like that. It even deactivates a neural pathway responsible for negative emotions, such as fear and social judgment. So the connection between the reward center and the amygdala, which is the fear part of our brain, shuts off as well. So you're getting a massive hit, and I know how amazing falling in love feels. I mean, it's absolutely euphoric. I suppose my naive brain, who maybe didn't know too much about love addiction, I might have assumed that love addiction was about repeatedly falling in love. So what you do is you'd seek someone out, you'd get the buzz of falling in love with somebody, and then once that that high comes down, you'd sort of ditch them and then start another relationship. Is that part of it?
Look, everybody's behavior is different, and yes, that is part of it for some people, not for others, because the other side, which forms under the umbrella of love addiction, is the avoidance side. So you're avoiding falling in love. I know people who will not go into relationships because they're scared of it ending,
right?
And that freaks them out more than that whole feeling, as you say, of falling with someone or being with someone, and all the joy that could bring. So they're missing out on certain aspects of their life. So they are what we would, in the terms of anorexia, emotional anorexia would be that. Avoidance is what I use.
Yeah.
So it's the umbrella is so broad. There's so much going on. You have to really go to the meetings, look into it, read up some research. There's, Pia Medley's written a wonderful book about love addiction and about self-awareness, and this whole thing about what's the other book I read recently? I can't remember now. Patrick Carnes. There's lots of writers out there that have written about this subject. Some of it not so good, others are better. And it goes, it depends. I mean, the best place, I think, to find out more about your own addiction is to listen to other people.
Yes.
That have come under that umbrella. So I go to a wonderful meeting on a Saturday morning in Waterloo, and there's often between 40 and 50 people, and the recovery in that room is evident.
Yeah.
And you're there and listen. And it's a short meeting, so not everyone gets a share. So, some weeks I don't say anything, but that's okay. Even they have a guest chair speaker, you're sitting there thinking, wow, I get some bites from that.
And what sounds amazing is you're getting a sponsor, which is like almost, I mean, it's not a therapist per se. We know that there's someone who's taking you through the 12 steps primarily, but it sounds like to be a sponsor in this fellowship, you'd have to be very sort of highly skilled and have lots of threads that come under that umbrella.
No, I don't think so. My sponsor is a lovely guy. I love him, and he's so open and honest with me. And I think ultimately that's what's really important. And he's the third person I asked. The first two people I asked actually turned me down, and that's absolutely okay, And it's for many reasons. The first person was because there might have been some kind of like triggering things from me.
Yeah.
Second person, she had just had too many people sponsoring. Finding the right sponsor is key. Yeah. It's a relationship. Yeah. Some sponsors can be quite hard on you, others a bit too lax. It's that finding a balance. But ultimately, don't be scared to end that relationship.
Yeah.
If it's not working out, it's not working out. Yeah. And everyone, should be grown up enough to go, okay, I understand. And then you just move on and find someone else. But ultimately, work the program. If you're going to do it, then work it. And find that sponsor that really kind of helps you on your journey, and it's not about them. Some sponsors maybe have a bit of an ego that they want to fix that person because they're not ultimately fixing themselves. Right. As you're right, they're not therapists.
Yeah,
mostly. Some of them.
Yes,
lots of therapists that go into the fellowship.
Yeah,
and that's okay as well. But you get to know that person. If you are looking for a sponsor, the best thing to do is go to the meeting where that sponsor is, and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah,
hear them talk. What are they sharing about? What are they saying? Does that resonate with you? Are you getting some identification from that? And then approach. Some people are so keen to, it's like actors. I need an agent. Don't care who it is. I'll just want an agent.
Go with anyone. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
If you can't, I always say when I coach young actors, do you want to have cocktails with that person? And they say no. So then that's not your agent. You say yes. It's not about going out drinking with them. That's beside the point. It's that you feel comfortable enough to be social with them, to be yourself, and that's the same as a sponsor. If you're hiding, you don't get punished. It's I don't know if it's the same in AA, but if you slip with us, it's slip questions.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Similar.
Yeah.
Okay,
similar.
Cool. So, and the slip questions vary depending on when you slip and stuff. If you slip between steps 1 and 3, they're more severe than anywhere else and that kind of thing. But sometimes the slip questions are really beneficial. I mean, some of the questions that are asked really kind of get into the.
And are these prescribed ones that are written down somewhere? So we don't have that. Wow.
No, there's 90 slip questions, I believe, that are written out from whoever. I mean, a lot of it does still stem from AA. I mean, AA ultimately, all we do in the 12 steps is we exchange the word alcoholic and alcohol to sex and love, sex and love addiction and stuff. Same as they do in CODA and CA and all the other ones. Yeah, exactly the same. So the mother group would be AA.
Got you.
So the steps, traditions, and everything that helps us. And
you just mentioned the word actor, so this is a good little segue into sort of the creative life that we have, and maybe where these two things collide. Oh, yeah. There was a word you said earlier that I kind of parked. You said you sort of addicted to fantasy, or you've always been about fantasy. Now, obviously, it would be a very, very easy link for me to make. That you're a creative because you're sort of obsessed with fantasy, but in the sense of being a creative. Is that too easy a link to make, that all of this is sort of tied in together, or are they quite separate things, do you think? As in for you personally?
Me personally, I think I have to separate it because as a writer, I need to go into my imagination and I need to really kind of delve in and find out what this story is, who these characters are, what's going on, how can I fuck up their lives, to make it more dramatic, all this kind of stuff. Right. Now, in reality, in my personal life and go into fantasy, I don't want my life to fuck up. So, you know, I would meet someone and then my mind would go all over the place with regards to where that may lead. Oh, they're not interested. They are interested. Oh, I'm not interested, being the avoidant. All this kind of stuff. So the fantasy element of it is that. So, and I have to be aware. And when I'm aware, then I switch it off.
Right.
I have to be present. It's all about being present. You know, anyone that works in a, not a spiritual tourist, but it really works on their spiritual growth, understands that it's all about being present. Today, now. And as you know of AA and stuff, day by day, the whole thing, today I'm not drinking, today I'm not acting out. In SLAA, today I'm not acting out. I've been abstaining on my bottom line sobriety for, I guess close to 2 years. But a lot of those things that were initially on my bottom lines, I've eradicated now.
Yeah.
I don't need them. They don't harm me in the way that they did before.
That makes sense.
But then there's other things.
What would you say the main benefits sort of you today versus 5 years ago? I know that's a massive question and it's going to be really hard to, I don't expect you to list them all because there'll be so many, but sort of on a sort of day-to-day level, sort of with your personal relationships or romantic relationships, obviously that's up to you whether you want to divulge on that side. But yeah, just for anyone interested who might be thinking, I identify with Darren. I think maybe this is love addiction. Is there sort of a carrot or a stick that you could dangle to say, well, if you do all this work, your life could look like this on a day-to-day level? I appreciate that's a tricky question. Okay,
it kind of is, but in some respects, what it is, it eliminates the rubbish.
Right.
And that's very broad. And that's kind of mean in some respects because that's in family, friends, relationships, work, all these kind of things. It for me personally, it made me focus on what's important and being present. It really did. I mean, to be fair, when I went into the fellowship, it was the beginning of lockdown. So the whole thing about being alone and stuff was forced on me. I live alone. I had no choice but to remain alone. I could have gone and lived with a friend or parents. I chose not to. I wanted to try. I wanted to see. Like I showed you this quote earlier. I can. Therefore that's the truth.
Yes.
If I can't, therefore that's the truth.
Yeah.
And ultimately I wanted to try it. And if I try it, then I know if I can or can't do something. I'm not just going to go, oh no, I can't do this. I need to give it a go. So for me now, where I am from 4 to 5 years later, is my relationships with the friends I have are much deeper.
Yeah.
I have a stronger relationship with my family. I'm more present.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I'm more focused on my work. I'm more driven. I'm more passionate. I feel I'm more interesting as a human being. And I think I can give far more to other people than I ever did before because I wasn't giving enough of myself.
Yeah.
There was, in some respects, it's funny because a lot of my past relationship history is all about fixing that person. That person's not right. And then if I work on them, I don't need to work on myself.
Yeah.
Which is what I think happens with a lot of therapists, personally.
Yeah.
That's one for another time.
Yeah.
I think ultimately by working the program that I have and continuing to work it, because you live in recovery. There's no such thing. I'm recovered. That's it. I'm done. I'm free. I can go off and, live my life. It's part of my life. It's who I am, which is why I'm talking to you now. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do this. And to be fair, in meetings, I rarely give chairs. I'm much more interested in the other person in the sense of where they are in their lives, what they're doing and stuff, rather than me saying, okay, this is what I'm doing. Because I don't feel I need to do that anymore. I don't need to be on that stage and start, amplifying my own thoughts and feelings and stuff. I don't need to project myself onto you. Okay. I'm much more engaged in what's going on here. I'm a listener more than a talker.
Got it. And that's wonderful. That's amazing. And I think you've described that really, really well for anyone listening or watching. So thank you for that. It's really interesting because you keep coming back to this word being present, which is obviously something, it's like something that I'm constantly working on. And I manage it quite a lot of the time. But I also know from speaking to you off air just before having a coffee that I think you've been diagnosed with ADHD. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, diagnose. I mean, I'm on that spectrum. Anyone that knows me personally knows that. I mean, it's one of those things like what I do for work, being a creative, and the fact that I wear many hats. I find it challenging focusing on one thing at a time. I am very inept at working on many things at once, especially my writing. I'll open up many screens.
Yeah.
And work on, because I have like many things going on at the same time. I feel more comfortable with that.
Right.
But
it seems like your recovery, from the stuff we've been talking about, it seems like maybe it's to an easy, conclusion that the byproduct of that has also been maybe it's helped you with your ADHD. I was thinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think ultimately having any neurodiversity, I think, is, and also you've got to bear in mind that more and more people are coming to realize that there's something going on which controls their behavior. The fact that I would go from a lover to a lover without really thinking about why I'm doing it and what I'm doing is probably stems from that behavior as well. But now I'm actually working. I know what my triggers are. I know. I'm much more aware as a person, as a human being. And I think ultimately, as long as I stay present and bring myself back into serenity prayer.
Absolutely.
The simplest thing you can do is, okay, oh my God, so much is going on. Breathe and just recite the serenity prayer.
100%.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
The courage to change things I can and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah. Ultimately, yeah.
I almost went into kind of a voiceover voice there, which is kind of weird when I did.
Deep and stuff like that.
You're absolutely right. I love it.
But that's the simplest way of doing things.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you can go into different meditations and whatever else. I am love. I am loved. I am love. I am loved. I do that before I go to bed.
Yeah. Well, we know through science that mantras absolutely work, and they change the neuroplasticity in the brain and do some amazing things. I think 50 years ago, people thought it was a bit pie in the sky. But it's absolutely proven by science. Yeah. What you say with your mouth starts the synapses in the brain mold to that thinking. It's incredible, really, isn't it? The power that we've got.
Water carries consciousness. I
love that. Yeah.
Amplify it. If you put happy thoughts on a bottle of water, and I used to do this actually. I've not done it for a long time because I don't use a clear bottle or anything. I use a flask, although it shouldn't really matter, I guess.
Yeah.
But I used to put affirmations on it.
Brilliant.
So you're drinking, so that vibration of that water, it comes into you.
Yeah.
And that's why I do my affirmations and stuff before I go to bed. Gratitude is a major part. I am so grateful for what has been given me, what has been taken away.
Yeah.
What has been left behind.
So this is part of your ongoing maintenance. Sorry, you were talking about a minute ago that you're not just recovered one day and you can just not do anything. Are those the things you're talking about? Obviously, staying connected to your meetings with your sponsor, the step work that you talked about, gratitude. All of this is part of what you would define as your maintenance, is it?
Yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just attuning myself, like sitting there and thinking, okay, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling like this? Again, this is like journaling and stuff and the things that you do in the later steps. But it's for me, it's really important. And I actually, it's interesting. It's like when a heavy meat eater goes vegan and they start preaching about the benefits of being vegan and stuff. It's almost the same as this. It's like the benefits of being in a fellowship. And I remember at the start, I was very much about. I mean, it's all about attraction rather than promotion, as we know in these things. But, you try and say, you meet somebody and go, oh my God, you should go to SLAA, you should do this and stuff. And it's like, no. You can be honest and open about what you're doing and where you are. And if that, resonates, and then they'll ask you questions about it, and then you can give them more, but you don't have to preach it on them. It's like standing on a soapbox and going, like I've been in SLAA for 4 years and it changed my life, and I'm not going back now, and you should do the same. It's like
it's like the guy's preaching down the Leicester Square with the mic. You're just gonna walk past and go, shut up.
On.
Yeah.
No. I service is an important role in a fellowship because you're giving something to others. It's a selfless act. What you're getting back isn't financial. It's not any of that kind of stuff. It's an emotional reward.
Yeah.
And for me, like for instance, I do service in my meetings from being a GSR through to like stacking chairs. Making tea, whatever it might be. But I'm ultimately a service level as an officer at Intergroup, which an Intergroup, in case you're not familiar, is obviously the umbrella organisation that looks after the fellowships and the meeting.
Yeah.
Although they're all obviously all autonomous.
Yeah.
In their running, there's still the greater kind of like group, as it were, a consciousness that kind of enables things to run smoothly. So things like the convention, which is happening in September. So if anyone's interested in the convention, learning more about that, that's happening in September in North London, and more details will be on the website, I think from May. From
Amazing.
Next one.
Brilliant. And we can always add a link into the show notes if you want. When you've got it,
that'd be lovely.
We can whack anything out. I'm just aware of time, and I think the studio might kick me out shortly, but I'm batting my eyes at George. Thank you, George. One quick thing before we finish up. We spoke off air, and obviously you've done your homework about some of the quotes that are used around creatives and mental health. So we know that 60% of creatives have had suicidal thoughts, that they're 3 times more likely to have depression, 15 times more likely to have anxiety. There isn't any clear stats around sort of recovery in general, whether it be love addiction, sex addiction, alcohol, or whatever else. But when we spoke about it before with a coffee, your eyes kind of lit up and went, well, of course, I just wondered, why do you think creatives, whether they be actors or writers or whatever creative it is, I see it in my own experience that there's lots and lots of creative people that are in recovery from all sorts of things. Why do you think that is? Do you think it is just the stress of being freelance, or do you think it goes a lot deeper than that?
I think a lot of creative people have felt pain in their life, and from many different elements, whether it's from family, whether it's from a broken relationship, whether it's from something that's happened to them physically or mentally, and I think they want to channel that into something creative, and that's where that kind of stems from, whether it's an actor, writer, a painter. You look at some of these painters, like you think, what's going on in that painting? Like you can sense that person was feeling a certain way, which is why that was the outcome. Actors, there's certain performances you see and you think, oh my God, you can really feel that person's gone through it. There's I have a thing about actors that do not connect to text and do not have any form of character development. I saw a play last night and I disconnected because I knew the actor hadn't researched properly what that character was going through and why it was happening. Right. Okay, if you had an actor that had gone through not the same thing, because it's all about imaginary circumstances. I'm a Meister trained actor, so it's imaginary set of circumstances given by the playwright. So you go in, you got an imagination. Hopefully, some people actually don't have much of one, as we're aware. Some people are blessed with having a very active imagination. I think, and they can find a way of connecting to that character that gives them that thing that propels them into what it is that they're doing as subject to the playwright or whatever. And if you've got an actor that's doing a scene about something very emotional and they felt a pain, not the same. If your character's grieving the loss of their mother dying of cancer, but you've never had that, but you've had something, your cat died, and that may be the closest thing to you. You can, sense that pain is still there, and use it in your work. And I think that happens as a painter, as a writer, as anything in the creative. A lot of kind of like very emotionally driven or even emotionally starved people that are creatives. You see comedians that have ended their life, and on the outside world they're this bundle of joy and they're bringing lots of laugh and happiness to other people, but ultimately they're not feeling it for themselves. They're hiding through their creativity.
Absolutely.
So, but for me personally, I think I'm a writer because I do have that imagination. I do need to kind of train my fantasy side of things with my romantic elements, because if I'm writing a character that needs to be romantically linked to a certain person and stuff, I can go to town. I can really create, and so I can use that side of me. But then I need to park it. So when I do meet someone, I don't go into the fantasy of, oh, this is going to happen. Oh no, because I need to pull back because this might happen and stuff. I can't. It's interesting as well. I've been through a lot of pain in past relationships. Okay, there've been some relationships that have ended, and I've been very. I've had those thoughts, Okay. I'm still here. So obviously it hasn't happened. But ultimately, I've got that lived experience. And for some people, once might be enough and they never go through there again. For me, I'm excited about finding or being with another person.
Yeah.
You know, I've been single for almost 5 years now. So, you know, it happens when it happens. Absolutely. In the old me, pre going into recovery, it would happen immediately. And then there'll be another mistake and then something else would happen and stuff and so forth. Right. Not doing that anymore. And it's not that the avoidance is there, which has always been there, but alcohol disguised that avoidance and allowed me to act out on certain behaviors. Well, that's not there anymore. So I recognize it and I know what it is. So, you know, when I meet someone and I think there's some potential in that there, I'll invest in it. I will give it a shot, give it a chance, give it a shot. But, you know, right now, no. So unless you've got a mate you want to be with, I don't know, but...
I've got a few. We can have a chat afterwards if you want. Yeah, absolutely. But like you say,
that's not my priority.
No.
You know, ultimately, it's me. I like the focus on my work. Again, kind of went into another addiction. I become a workaholic. You know, like
right. I've experienced that too.
Yeah. So it's one thing after another. You know, it's like we talked about before. You lose one addiction, then you fall into something else. You know, we talked about someone who gave up alcohol, then went into serial kind of
a lot. Some people do. They put down alcohol and then end up on a really serious drug or whatever, or overdose on something else. Unfortunately, Darren, we're out of time, which I'm gutted about. We could have carried on talking probably for about another 5 hours, but you're a very busy man and I'm so pleased that you've come down because I know you're spinning a lot of plates right now. So huge thanks for this very kind act of step 12 of how I see it today, which is fantastic. And as I say, guys, go to the show notes right now. I'm going to be putting lots of notes on there and links to all the stuff that we've been talking about. There's also a bio there, which I didn't mention at the beginning. So if you want to know more about Darren, you'll find it there. Also, his amazing podcast that he co-hosts with... Sorry, what's your co-host called?
Her name's Natalie.
Natalie,
yeah, former actress. Yeah, Natalie. Yeah.
So go and check out Darren and Natalie's podcast, the Theatre Audience Podcast. Subscribe to that now. Follow it. Give it 5 stars. Write it a review. Also do the same for School of Rock Bottom as well. That would be brilliant. So that's plug over. Darren, wishing you a really, really great week, mate, and I hope to see you really soon as well.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me along.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it. And as always, as I've always promised, I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, look after yourself. See you soon.